This video will walk you through how to create this backpack. It's my own design. The pattern is called April Slim Backpack. It's a slim design that lies really nicely against your back when you carry it. This pattern is available in my Etsy store. The link to the Etsy store is in the description box below. When you visit Etsy store, you're gonna be able to review the full supply list for this project, so you can make sure that you have all needed supplies to create this backpack. This bag features a large front zipper pocket and a hidden side zipper to access the main compartment and keep your items secure. It has 3 panels in the front and 2 panels on the back. I like to use vinyl for the bottom panel to keep my bag clean. This pattern is a confident beginner level pattern. You will be able to follow the instructions and create this bag. The pattern comes with the full written instructions, so you're gonna be able to refer to this video and also to the as a backup to the written instructions and the photos in the pattern. If you would like to stay up to date with my patterns releases and have access to discount codes for my patterns, please make sure to join my Facebook group. The link to the Facebook group is listed in the description box below. If you like my patterns and you would like me to create more tutorials, video tutorials of my patterns, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and give the video a like. Let's get started. The initial step in the pattern will describe how to follow the pattern pieces template. This pattern doesn't come with the printable pattern pieces, as I think it would be a waste of paper and your time to be printing it and putting all those pieces together, when it's easier and faster to just transfer the measurements. That said, there will be a template that will show you how to transfer the measurements onto the fabric and how to cut all the angled pieces. I cut and prepped all my pattern pieces, almost all my pattern pieces, and I selected all my supplies needed per the supply list, but I left one lining piece still to be cut to show you how easy and quick it is to cut it based on the measurements. So I'm gonna move all of this aside and show you how to cut the pattern piece based on the provided template and measurements. You're gonna prep the fabric that you choose to use as lining. I'm using a quilting cotton, and you're gonna start transferring the measurements provided in the template, starting with the folded bottom measurement. I'm using a chalk pen. This since I'm cutting out this pattern piece on the wrong side of the fabric, it doesn't matter, but all other pattern pieces should be cut on the right side of the fabric. So make sure you're using something that is erasable, or just make sure all your measurements and your marks are within the seam allowances. So we're going to transfer the first measurement, which is the bottom of our packet. Then, referring to the template, we're going to transfer the second measurement, making sure the fabric is under 90-degree angle. And then we're going to transfer our third measurement, making sure all is under 90-degree angle. So you can just use those points to cut your fabric, or you can connect those measurements if that's something that is easier for you. I'm fine with just using the dots. So I'm gonna start with cutting my right side, moving up to the top cut and finishing it up with the left cut. And just like that, I have my pattern piece cut. I think that's faster than trying to print multiple pages of paper and connecting it and then transferring it onto the fabric. So with the all other pattern pieces, just follow the same technique and your pattern will be cut out in no time. Now that we have all our pattern pieces ready, we're gonna start putting our project together, starting with the front zipper pocket. So you would need the zipper tape for the pocket, the front panel, some double-sided tape, and a zipper pull, and the lining. So the first step is to make sure you interfaced your pocket panel with Decovil Light or Sew Fuse Plus, whatever you prefer and have on hand. Then you're gonna mark a 3/4 of an inch line below the top edge of your pocket panel, and make sure you're paying attention to your fabric direction if you're using directional fabric. Also, you're gonna mark a midpoint of the panel. I mark it with a pen. Then you're gonna take your zipper tape, and on the wrong side of the zipper tape, you're gonna measure the main midpoint and also a point of 1 inch from each edge. So make sure you have that prepped. Then you're gonna place double-sided tape between those two 1 inch points. Remove the backing of the tape and align the zipper tape along the 3/4 of an inch line that you drawn on the pocket panel. So you have your zipper placed. If you don't have a double-sided tape, you can just use pins to secure the zipper tape while you're sewing, but double-sided tape is very useful, so I would recommend to get some double-sided tape. So when you have your zipper prepped like that, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew the zipper on between the 1 inch marks with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure to backstitch on the end and on the beginning of the seam. And now that your zipper tape is attached to your main panel, you're gonna take your lining and clip it together, right sides together with the pocket panel. I'll make sure you're aligning the lining panel with the ends of the zipper, so it should be centered on the main pocket panel. So when you have that put together, so you have the pocket panel right sides up, the zipper teeth side down, and then the lining right side down, so both right sides of the fabrics are together. You're gonna make sure everything is flat. You're gonna flip the project the other way up and take it to the machine and follow this seam exactly on your sewing machine. So we want to attach the lining following the seam we just created while attaching the zipper. So I sew in the lining. You can see it's now stitched on the lining side, and there is a double seam on the main pocket panel side. What we want to do now is to create cuts so we can flip the zipper the right side up. So you're gonna cut make cuts under an angle towards the inside of the pocket, right to the first stitch of your zipper seam. And you're gonna repeat that on both sides. Make sure you cut right to it, but don't cut any stitches. This way, you're gonna take it to the ironing board, flip the zipper, and press it in place. When that's done, you want to insert your zipper pull on. And I like my zipper to be closing going up, so I'm gonna insert the zipper from the right side to the left. You can do whatever your preference is. I just think it works better this way. So now that you have your seam pressed down and the zipper is in the up position, we're gonna continue with enclosing our zipper tape. So what you want to do, you want to make sure that those little corners are flipped inside the project. You're gonna align the fabric of the front pocket panel with the edge of the zipper and secure it with the clips. You're gonna do the same on the other side. You want to make sure when you're folding the fabric, it folds exactly where your seam ends. So you want to flip it over and repeat the same technique with the lining. So you're gonna fold the lining in and align it with the top edge of the zipper and clip it with the clips to secure the fabric. When you have your panel prepped like that, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna stitch it from the top edge to the point where your seam ends. So you want to make sure that you are stitching exactly on that point. You don't want to stitch it a little inside or outside because your zipper facing will not lay nice and flat. So make sure you are stitching right on that point where your seam ended, and repeat that on both sides. After that's done, open the panel, the front panel and the lining, and press the zipper opening nicely. Now I have my zipper enclosed. I finish up enclosing my zipper with the little side seams, and I open my project and I pressed it on the front and on the lining side. Now the last thing left to do is just top stitch around the zipper tape. So take it to the machine and top stitch along those three edges with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. I top stitch along the zipper. Now I'm gonna work on closing the lining of the pocket. So you wanna pull your lining up to the top edge, secure that with clips. Also secure the side edges with clips. Make sure everything aligns nicely. And we're gonna start closing up our pocket lining with the sides. So take it to the machine. Make sure you are not sewing the outer panel. Flip it over and close up your sides first. Repeat that on both sides. When that's done, you can base the top of the pocket lining along the zipper tape and the top edge. So make sure your lining sides are closed first and then baste the top edge to the top edge of the zipper. Now that our lining of the pocket is completed and it's closed in, we're gonna move on to finishing up our front panel of the back. You're gonna take your pattern piece A and pattern piece C and attach it to the upper and the bottom edge of your bucket panel. So starting with the vinyl panel, you want to align it along the bottom edge, making sure that this little corner sticks out a little bit and it meets the pocket panel where the seam gonna run. So it's gonna be around 3/8 of an inch up from the bottom edge. When you have your panel aligned like this, clip it together. Make sure both panels are right sides together, and you can move on to attaching the upper panel, panel C. So you're gonna do the same thing. You want to make sure that this little corner sticks out a little bit, and it's gonna align with the 3/8 of an inch mark. You want to secure that. Make sure that both panels are right sides together, and clip panel C to the pocket panel A along the zipper edge. Now that you have both panels clipped and secured, you're gonna take it to the machine and sew with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides, and then you're gonna open the panels. You can press the waterproof canvas, but don't press the vinyl because you're gonna damage it, and top stitch along the seam on the waterproof canvas side and on the vinyl side with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. So I sew in the upper panel and the bottom panel onto my project, and now I have my front of the bag almost completed. Now you can trim those little corners here that were created by folding the fabric. So that's trimmed, and now we can move on to creating our D-ring tops. You're gonna take your pre-cut webbing tape. You will have the measurements in the cut list. Thread the D-rings on, fold them in half. You can use clips to hold the folds in. Also, just a reminder that if you are using a polyester webbing, make sure you melt the ends of the webbing so it won't unravel. So when I have my D-rings ready, I'm gonna mark 3 inches from the bottom edge on each side, and that's where we're gonna place our D-rings. So you're gonna take your D-ring, make sure it's folded inside the fabric. I like to give it around a 1/2 inch overhang to make sure that when I sew it in, it's gonna have some strength. Clip it to the outer panel. Repeat that on the other side. Make sure that your overhang is equal on both sides. Secure it with clips and take it to the machine and base stitch the D-ring tops onto the panel. Now our front outer panel is completed. We're gonna put it aside and work on our back of the back panel. You're gonna take a pattern piece D and pattern piece E, and you're gonna align the angled edges. You're gonna repeat the same thing we did with the front panel, so you want to make sure that this little corner sticks out a little bit, and you're gonna make sure both panels are right sides together. Clip it to secure it in place, and stitch it along the edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And after that's done, open the panel and top stitch on the vinyl side of the panel with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Our back panel is completed. We're gonna put it aside and work on our lining. So what we want to make sure that our lining is interfaced and that the interfacing doesn't go all the way to the top. And when you're working with the lining, make sure that this unlined edge, it's your top of the lining. We want to work on creating the slip pocket. So you're gonna take your slip pocket piece and you're gonna fold it in half. It's a square, so either way you fold it, it's gonna create exactly the same size. So you're gonna fold it in half, clip along the long edge, and sew the long edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then you're gonna turn the pocket right side out, take it to the ironing board and iron it on the right side. And then you're gonna top stitch the folded edge to give it a little more strength before we attach it to our lining panel. Our slip pocket for the lining is completed. We're gonna now attach it to the main lining panel. Once again, you want to make sure that the unlined part of the lining is on the top. Then you're gonna mark 3-inch marks from the bottom edge and align the pocket panel with that mark. You can use pins to secure the pocket onto the lining, and you're gonna take it to the machine and top stitch along the bottom edge with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch lengths, and baste the sides. Also, this is optional, you can divide the pocket into multiple pockets. You can make 2 pockets or split it in 3. I'm gonna make 3 smaller pockets following the measurements provided in the pattern. Make sure when you are splitting the pockets, you are starting your seam from the bottom and going to the top. And make sure to backstitch well. Our pocket is attached to the lining. I split the pocket into 3. That's how I like it. So when you have that done, you can now put the lining aside. We're gonna now work on the main zipper closure. So we're gonna use the same technique we used for the front pocket. So you wanna mark a line from the right edge of the back panel that it's 3/4 of an inch in from the edge. Then you're gonna also measure 4 inches from the bottom of the panel, and you wanna make a mark. You're gonna prep your zipper tape by marking 1/2 inch points from each short edge of the zipper tape, and you're gonna attach a strip of double-sided tape along the edge on the right side of the zipper. So we're gonna remove the backing of the double-sided tape, and we're gonna align the zipper with the marked line. We want to make sure that the zipper starts where we mark the 4 inches. So now we have the zipper affixed to our back outer panel. We're gonna take it to the machine and we're gonna sew it on with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure you're gonna start your seam and end your seam on the 1/2 inch mark, and make sure you backstitch on the beginning and on the end of the seam. The zipper is sewn in. Now we're gonna take our lining panel, and I like the pocket to be on the back of my backpack, so that's the lining panel I'm gonna use. And I'm gonna align it with the right edge of my outer panel, making sure that my pocket is the right way up. You're gonna clip that in place to make sure that the lining stays in place. Then you're gonna flip your project and take it to the machine and sew the lining on, following the seam that we just attached the zipper with. So make sure your lining stays nice and flat on the back, and just follow that same seam with the lining under your project. Now that your lining is attached, you want to make sure that you insert your zipper pull, and this is important. You have to insert the zipper pull from the bottom to the top. You don't want your backpack to open the other way around. You want to be able to close your backpack and pulling the pull up. So let's do that, and then we move on to another step. Now that your zipper pull is installed and it's going from the bottom to the top, you're gonna fold the lining back, and you're gonna snip the top edge. So you're gonna make a cut under an angle that it's going from inside edge towards the first stitch of the seam. Make sure you are cutting right to the first stitch, but don't cut the thread, and repeat that on the other side. Now that you have your cuts made, you're gonna open the lining, pull the zipper up, and finger press, or you can press it with the iron. Make sure you're pressing the outer panel down. Now we're gonna fold our outer panels the same way we did with the front pocket. Align the fabric with the top edge of the zipper and clip it in place, making sure that all the extra fabric is on the wrong side of the project. So repeat that on the other side. Make sure the fabric aligns, the edge of the fabric aligns with the edge of the zipper, and repeat the same thing with the lining. Now that your panels are prepped, folded, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna close in the zipper tape. You're gonna sew from the top edge right to the first stitch of the zipper seam. And you're gonna do it on both sides, making sure you are catching the lining and the outer panel. Now that your seams are completed, you're gonna open the panels, align them nicely. You can take it to the ironing board, but be really careful because you don't want to damage the vinyl. And you can press the seam and top stitch along the zipper with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. The main zipper is now completed, and now we're gonna be working on finishing up the outer of our bag. So what you wanna do, you wanna attach the front outer panel. Take the front outer panel and place it right sides together on the back outer panel. You wanna make sure that your vinyl panels meet nicely, so when you sew it in, you're gonna have a seamless transition on the side. And now continue to clipping the panels together. Make sure you are catching the lining of the back panel as well. When you have the outer panels clipped together, take it to the machine and baste it along the edge. Now that the panels are basted in place, we wanna attach our lining. So you're gonna flip your project lining side up. You're gonna take your second lining panel and making sure that the unlined part is again on the top, and this is the top of our bag. You can double check, making sure that the pocket is in the right direction, and clip this lining panel along the edge with the zipper. When you have the lining secured, you're gonna take it to the machine and sew all the way through along the zipper edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 stitch length. When you have that done, you're gonna open the project and you're gonna top stitch on the front panel side only along the zipper tape. So you're gonna be top stitching right here from the point where the zipper starts and up to the point when the zipper ends. So make sure when you're back stitching on that seam, you're gonna back stitch on the beginning and on the end of the seam. Now that our zipper side is completed, we top stitched on both sides, and that seam is final. Now we wanna continue with enclosing our outer panels and lining panels. So you wanna put the outer panels right sides together, and again make sure you are aligning the vinyl accent panels. So start with this and clip along the edge. When you have the outer panel clipped, continue with clipping the lining panels right sides together. And when you have that ready, take it to the machine and sew the lining and the outer panels with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 stitch length. Now that you have your side sewn, you're gonna clip the bottom edges together. So go ahead and use clips and clip the bottom edges of the outer panels and the lining together. And when you have that done, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along the bottom edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 stitch length. But what you wanna do, you wanna carry a seam on the outer panel, stop here, flip your project, making sure the panel is out of the way. You can start even from that end and then start the seam sewing along the edge and stopping right before the seam that connects the lining and the outer panels. Now that you have your bottom seams completed, we're gonna work on boxing our corners. Just a note that it's a good idea to double stitch on the vinyl to prevent the thread showing of your stitches, so consider doing that. But now we can start boxing our corners. So you're gonna take a ruler and you're gonna mark 1 inch squares on each corner, making sure you are measuring from the seam and not from the edge of the fabric. And in the middle, you're gonna do the same, so you're gonna measure from the seams. Now that you have your corners marked and cut out, we're gonna work on boxing the corners. You want to start with opening the cuts, and you want to make sure you're gonna align the bottom seam with the side seam. I like to put the seam allowances on opposite sides, so this way you can just nest the seam inside each other. So do that. Make sure you open the fabric nicely and secure the boxing of the fabric with clips. Repeat that on the other end. And when you get to the middle, we're gonna attach both lining and the outer panels together. Just make sure that the seam allowance is folded the same way. So if you folded it towards the left, just repeat the same thing. Just temporarily secure it while you're working with the lining. Open the lining, it's a little stiffer with the interfacing. Clip the sides together. So now the middle corner, you have clipped together the lining and the outer panel, and you're gonna just close it up with one seam. And the other corners, you're just gonna do as usual. So now that you have everything prepped, you can take it to the machine and sew it with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And make sure that you double stitch, or you just run 2 seams on the vinyl side of the back to make sure that the stitching won't show. Our corners are boxed. Now we're gonna turn the project right side out. So now that we have the main work on our backpack done, we're gonna move on to attaching the handle and the top D-ring. So what you wanna do, you wanna take the webbing tape that is cut to size for the handle, and you wanna fold it in half and secure that fold with clips. Mark a 2-inch space on each end. We want to make sure we only gonna sew between the 2-inch spaces. So when you have your handle prepped like that, take it to the machine and top stitch along the open edge, just between those 2-inch marks. Make sure you top stitch or you back stitch real well on the beginning and on the end of the seam. So we have our back right side out. We want to make sure we mark a central mark on the top of the front panel, and we're gonna now place our top D-ring tab. So you're gonna take the webbing that is cut to size for the top D-ring tab. I'm using a square ring, but you can use a regular D-ring. You're gonna thread the D-ring on. You're gonna fold the tab in half, twist it on the side, We want to do that because we don't want to have too much bulk when we sewing our final seam, and actually I like this look better, so I like to twist it. Then also I have a perfect placement in the middle because I have the split. I want to make sure that the outer corners align with the top of the panel, and I'm gonna clip this in place. Then I'm gonna take my handle, make sure that the open edge it's facing upwards, and I'm gonna attach it to the outer panel just outside of the D-ring tab. So when you have that prepped, you're gonna take it to the machine and baste it on. Turn the project lining side out, align all top edges, take it to the machine and sew with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that you have the top seam done, you can clip the extras of the webbing tape. Make sure you're gonna melt it with the lighter, but look out at your other fabric so they won't catch on fire. And when you have that done, you're gonna take your project and you're gonna fold the corners about 2 inches in. The fold should just touch the webbing of the handle, so it shouldn't overlap. We don't want to make a bulky seam. Repeat that on the other side. Take this to the machine and baste it in place. Now that we have our fold secured, we're gonna now working on finishing up our upper seam. That's where our piece of bias tape comes in. You want to place it right sides together along the top edge, clip it in place, making sure that you have around equal overhang on each side, because we want to make sure we're gonna have space to wrap the top of the seam. So when you have that clipped, take it to the machine and sew it with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance along the top edge. Now that our tape is attached to the project, you're gonna flip it over, fold the sides, fold it in half and in half to make sure we are enclosing our top seam allowance. When you have that secured with clips, take it to the machine and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the bottom fold of the tape to secure the tape in place. So now we have our backpack virtually ready. We just have to work on a couple finishing touches and the backpack strap. So first we're gonna put our backpack strap together. You're gonna start with your webbing tape and your sliding adjuster. You're gonna thread the webbing, wrapping the middle bar of the adjuster, pull it on the tape, then take your swivel clasp and insert it, the hook side up, onto the tape. Then flip the tape over, create a bigger loop where the adjuster is, and thread the end of the tape again over the middle bar. When you create the loop and you pull the tape, that helps you with threading the second layer of the tape through the middle bar. So when you have that done, you can make sure you have a nice piece of webbing to be folded over and secured. You can right now secure it with clips. And to the next step would be to take our backpack and thread the webbing through the top D-ring. When you do that, you want to make sure that your strap is the right way up. So I have to twist it. So when you attach it, it's going to be the right side out. Now that you have that threaded, you're going to fold your webbing over, making sure you have it the way you would like the final strap to be attached. So now we know we have to insert our sliding adjuster. Make sure you don't twist the tape. We have the adjuster on. We're gonna take our second swivel clasp and insert the hook side up. Flip the tape over, create a loop, making sure the tape is not twisted. Thread it through the middle bar again. You want to have around 1.5 inches of tape to be folded over. Now you can secure that with clips, and you can take it to the machine and sew it, or you can secure it with rivets. And I'm gonna secure it with rivets. I'm gonna place 2 rivets about 1/2 inch from the cut edge of the webbing. The project is now completed. I added a couple optional small items to the back, like the back tag and a couple rivets on the top. This is optional. It's the look I prefer, but you can skip it. The back is totally functional without the rivets. I like that it has this side zipper, that it's hidden, so your items will stay secure. If you would like to make this backpack, please make sure to visit my Etsy store. The link to the Etsy store is in the description box below. You're gonna be able to download the patterns instantly. It's an instant download from Etsy. It contains a full step-by-step written instructions with pictures, so you're gonna be able to make the backpack following the written instructions or referring to this video. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you enjoy watching it. If you did, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and to give the video a like. Till the next time.